Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Lisa Konick, and I am hosting a Facebook Live parenting series. The title of our talk this month is going to be Help, My Kids Are Going Crazy. And just a little bit about myself. I'm a clinical psychologist and a group practice owner. I have a practice located in South Naperville, as well as in Orland Park. And we do a lot of work with children and families, and we are behavioral specialists, so we do a lot of behavioral support for parents and for educational consultations, and we also do psychological assessment and testing services. And the reason we wanted to present this parenting series to you was we were working with a lot of families, and we did switch to telehealth with all of the changes that have been going on with COVID and the pandemic. And we've had a lot of our families really require a lot of request a lot of behavioral management support. They have a lot of concerns. A number of our parents, especially the elementary aged kids, were having some challenges coping with the changes with the lack of structure and being out of school. And parents were trying to work from home and feeling very overwhelmed, doing crisis schooling and e-learning and trying to work and support their kids. Kids were very stressed with the lack of structure. And some of these things, despite the reopening of Illinois in June, we may see a very different summer than we're used to. And we may not see the same back to school transition that we're used to either. So I know there's still a lot of uncertainty. And with all of this uncertainty, a lot of the children that we've been working with as clients have been having regressive behaviors, tantrums, outbursts, things that were a bit unusual for them. So we put together this parenting series to support you in getting some tips and strategies on how to manage your child's behavior. So the June series is going to focus primarily on behavioral management. Today I'm going to be talking about structure and strategies for working at home. We're also going to have Wanda Malone of Wanda Educational Consulting Services speak to us next week about remote learning and the e-learning process and transitioning back to school and what you might need to know for your IEP or 504 plan. We have a occupational therapist, Maggie Lord from BDI Playhouse, is going to speak with us later in the month about sensory regulation strategies. And Colleen Hansen from Core Counseling is a social skills expert, and she's going to be talking to us about how to manage social skills during this time of social distancing. So we hope you will tune in for those other series, and please provide your feedback. And we're excited to have your feedback and your comments. So today, what I'd like to do is talk to you about a behavioral model of how to structure your child's behavior. And there's three tips that I want to provide that are simultaneously interrelated. So the first is to think about, as you're working at home, our days kind of are blending together, and our kids we don't know which day of the week it is. We don't know what time of the day it is. And things are becoming very mundane. Kids are familiar activities such as sports activities and going to the pool and going on vacation are really going to look a lot different this year. So one of the things that I can stress very strongly is how to create a good structure and routine at home. And a lot of families have said this has been a game changer, and they've seen changes in their child's behavior within a week of us checking in once they started developing a routine. So I want to talk to you about how to establish a good routine and how that might coincide with your work schedule. When we think about routine and structure, kids want a sense of predictability. And when they're in school, they have a very predictable environment. And when we have been out of school for so long and away from our friends, things are very uncertain and unpredictable. So this structure and routine helps kids with familiarity and knowing what to expect, which then decreases their anxiety, which then decreases their acting out behaviors. So knowing what to expect is very important, and it's helpful for parents because they can plan their work schedule better. The other thing that's important when you have a good structured routine is to use very clear communication. I use the words expected and unexpected a lot with my clients. And it really, a lot of kids will say, Dr. Konick, please stop using that word expected. I know what to expect. So when we know what to expect, our anxieties are reduced, our behavior is more regulated, and parents are less stressed as a result. The third piece that's really important is these kind of go hand in hand is I strongly recommend creating a visual schedule for your kids and for yourself. And it could be as simple as a whiteboard. You can actually use a calendar. But I like to use the concept of time. So when we think about the time, we have, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, we structure those times in our anchor points. And when we can see what's coming up for the day, it really can reduce distress and create some evenness in kids because they know what's coming up. There's a sequence for the day and there's a sequence for the week in some cases as well. And they know where they're supposed to be and they know when you're available and what is expected of them during different points of the day. So when I think about these time segments, I want to talk about those natural anchor points. And the natural anchor points are when we think about our meal times, our wake up time, and our bedtime. That gives us 5 anchors in the day. Mealtime is breakfast time, lunch time, dinner time. Those are pretty structured. Kids know what to do and what the process is in your family when we have a mealtime. And there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So we have that sense of structure within those times. So that's a great anchor point for you to put into your schedule. And if you don't have regular meal times, that's okay. But I would try to keep that included in your schedule. And if it's helpful for you, try to make it as regular as you can. The others is the wake up and the bedtime. And if you have a great bedtime routine, it really helps your kids with that sleep program. And it also helps reduce all of that agitation and sensory overload and behavioral acting out that we might see at nighttime when we have to separate and transition. So it really helps those transitions. So think about your anchors, and then we can fill in the rest of the day. And I'm going to talk to you about various aspects of structure that can help and think about what works for your family. So when I think about these anchor points, and then I think about working at home, think about formalizing your work schedule and include those anchors in your schedule for your kids. So provide the kids with expectations of when you're going to be available to them during the day and when you will not be available. And then those expectations will be helpful to them. So what are they expected to do when you're working? And this is probably more of an issue, obviously, for the elementary age children who need more of your attention. And we see a lot of needling and interrupting, and it makes it very difficult for parents to get work done at home. But if you provide your children with the expectation of when you're going to be available and unavailable. So for example, if you're going to be on a call for 30 minutes, set them up with an activity that they can do for 30 minutes. That could be long for some younger kids. And then praise the heck out of them when they're done and give them your attention. And when I think a lot of parents underestimate the value of your attention to your kids. I'm going to talk about that a little later, but attention is a lot of what they're seeking. So all of this needling and arguing and whining, that's attention-seeking behavior. But unfortunately, a lot of times we reward kids for those behaviors by giving them the attention and not giving them attention when they're doing the things that we want them to do. So that's an important piece. Get them set up to do things when you're working and praise them afterwards. So I'm going to have a hard time talking through this and answering questions, but I will definitely have the opportunity to answer questions at the end. And feel free to post your comments as well. So when I think about those time segments, when I'm thinking about those schedules and blocking the time off, I like to even think about them as little boxes that we can move around. I think about what are those expectations, and kids like choices. So the time segments that I like to refer to when I help families set up a behavioral plan and a schedule. We've got meal times, as I mentioned, learning time. That's an important time for a lot of families. A lot of families are doing enrichment over summer. They may have scheduled reading. Some of your children may actually have academic tasks to complete over the course of summer. And we probably all know, especially for our kids that are in enriched honors AP classes, they have summer reading to do or summer tasks to do before to get those prerequisites in for the next class when it starts up in the fall. And a lot of these kids are cramming when they get there. Setting up that learning time every day and having some structure in that learning time can be helpful. Outdoor time, family time, work time, and screen time are the different topics of time that I think about. And we can always add in more, but those are the things that I think about. We are giving those estimates. And then within the context of that, set up some expectations for your kids. What does screen time mean? What are the things I can do on my screens during that time? What choices do I have? Kids like choices. We all like choices. And we feel like our choices have been pretty limited over this last several months. So giving choices will also help to reduce some of that tension. And a lot of times when I see kids doing some enrichment activities, we'll say, do you want to do the math first or the reading first? They like that choice. Do you want to do your math in the morning or after lunch? They like that choice. So when you structure that and give them some choices, you're probably going to have a bit less resistance and arguing taking place. I also think about with your work time, set that into the schedule too. These are times that I'm not going to be available, but then during family time, which comes at some point in the day, I will be available. So now your kids know when they have your time. So more about these times. I like to build in some specific suggestions for structure in these schedules. So the times that I suggest for a daily routine that are probably healthy and keep your family balanced and happy is physical activity. We all know the research supports physical activity for health, movement. It's a tension release. It's a stress reduction. So think about how your family integrates physical activity. And as a working parent working from home, you need it too. You need to move and flex and get away from your desk for a little while. So if you can build physical activity throughout the day and put your kids in that bucket with you, it will be beneficial for all of you. I think about time outside. Some of the kids are resuming their sports practices and sports schedules, so they will be getting that physical activity. But families have been going on bike rides, walking the dog. Some dogs are getting many walks a day. They're very happy right now. And thinking about ways to integrate physical activity into your daily routine. The other piece I started mentioning was academic enrichment. I do recommend you do it early in the day. And that's something that some kids can do more independently. So that's a time that you might overlap your work schedule with some of their learning time or their reading time so that you're getting a chunk of work done and your kids have something very specific to do during that time, and then let them know when you'll be available to help them and engage with them after that academic task is over. A lot of our families have, the reason they're working with us is because their kids are highly resistant to academics. And that's often the case with kids that have special needs when it comes to learning disabilities, learning difficulties. It really is very attentional issues. It's very difficult for them and they need the support. So I think about even if you're going to take a break from academics over the summer, you can still embed the learning into your day. And I have talked about functional ways to integrate the learning into the day and into the routine. And I think about tasks such as cooking. Cooking is a task that you can do with your child, and they might actually get quite excited about it. It integrates reading. You read a recipe. You might have to plan a meal. There's sequencing events. There's math. There's chemistry. There's time. There's measurement. So there's a lot of things that you can integrate academically into some of these tasks. Home improvement tasks, if you're going to be doing measuring, there's cause and effect reasoning, there's problem solving, we have to decide what to purchase. Those things are also helpful for embedding some of these mathematical, science, reading activities into your day. I also like the suggestion of using money and giving children opportunities to use money, to earn money, to spend money, to save money, to make change. Those tasks are also integrating ways of incorporating learning into your day. So thinking about those activities for academic enrichment, I know that's a bit of a sidetrack on this, but I like to include it because it's part of that structure, and those menus, like I said, of those time factors are important for kids to give them choices. It also reduces your tension as a parent trying to force kids to do learning. They're kind of tricked into doing it when they're doing something fun. The other piece that I think is very beneficial is creative time every day. So what are your kids doing with you that are creative? And can they do some independent creative activities while you're working? So if you set them up well and have a creative block of time every day with a menu of options that you can research together with your kids. Maybe there's YouTube videos. They want to do some drawing activities, and make sure that they have the supplies that they need pre-organized so that there's those bins go out. Here you go. I'm going to be on the phone for 30 minutes and you're going to make me a beautiful project. You're going to make me a bracelet. You're going to draw me a picture. We're going to make a painting. We're doing some puzzles. There's a lot of things we can do for creative thinking. Some of it you can do with your child, but some of it you can also set them up successfully to do and then reward them when they're done by having something wonderful to share with you when you're done with your work and they're done with their task. The other piece that I think is important that we integrate into our daily structure and our daily schedule is the concept of free time. Kids like to have time that they're not allocated to do something that you're asking them to do. They want to do something that they like. And you have to decide whether or not that includes screens. If it's truly free time, it probably does include screens. So that's gaming time, watching movies, watching YouTube, watching people play other video games, which is a popular activity. And those things are things that kids get to do without being interrupted by you or controlled. So they have that opportunity to do the things that they like to do. And if they have free time, a lot of times that's designated. That's kind of like their time to be with themselves or to have that moment without being told what to do. Often I have families that have kids that'll say, I don't know what to do, I'm bored. And that's tricky because that's a very challenging management issue when you're trying to work, but your child needs to be constantly entertained. And you can't do that when you're working from home. For this topic, if you don't want them to be on screens all day and you're trying to restrict screens or limit screens, or your child is not a screen kid, then I suggest making a boredom jar. A boredom jar is an activity jar that we all get together, and it's kind of your rainy day jar, but everybody can take the opportunity to add things into the jar. These are ideas of things that they can do independently, and the agreement that you have with them is that they have to do something. If they go to the boredom jar, they have to do something that they pull out of the boredom jar. So we all take turns, and everybody gets involved in giving ideas for the boredom jar. And some of these things go along with your creative time. They could be crafts, they could be puzzles, they could be books, they could be sidewalk chalk, draw a picture, write a letter to your grandma, something like that. So there's lots of things that we could do to put in the boredom jar. We have some suggestions and ideas for kid activities on our website as well. We have been trying to collect some resources to put on our page that include activities for kids, audiobooks, things of that nature, virtual tours. So feel free to resort to take a view at that and see if there's any ideas that are useful to you there. There's two more pieces here I want to include for structure. Household chores. Kids do not like to do household chores, but the research demonstrates that there are significant benefits for independence and accountability and being part of a communal living situation that helps kids really feel a sense of accomplishment when they are engaging in chores at home. I'm a big fan of chores. I think that it really helps kids, even younger kids, to have a sense of responsibility. And so based on the age of your child, you can start integrating some tasks for them, doing the dishes, putting the dishes away. Teenagers can certainly rinse their dishes and put them in the dishwasher. They can load and unload. They can vacuum. They can assist with picking up their room. They can assist with folding laundry or doing tasks like that. So I encourage that to be a part of the day as well, or at least integrated into your weekly activities, as there are days that the kids might rotate doing some supportive activities. Pet care is a very good one for younger kids. They can feed the dog, they can change the water bowls, things of that nature. So I think getting the kids integrated into chores and activities is helpful. It gives them a sense of reward as well. We have some behavioral and chore charts on our website that can be very helpful in helping you to implement some structure with this and giving them some incentives for completing those chores. And you don't necessarily have to pay them money, but they could be rewarded with activities. The last piece that I think is important for you to include in your structure, in your daily routines, is self-care, relaxation, and or downtime, some combination of those. And that's really allowing everybody to take a break and have some relaxation time. And some kids need this embedded within their day, so they may have learning time followed by some downtime where they kind of chill. They may need that high activation time prior to specific types of difficult activities, followed by some downtime. And parents need this too for their own wellness. So I strongly encourage everybody to find ways to find some downtime. We have some relaxation apps on our website for both children and adults, and they include mindfulness, deep breathing exercises, and stress reduction techniques. So I encourage you to use these. Sometimes physical activity can be a downtime for people, sometimes reading. There's lots of opportunities to put that into your day and work with your kids on that. I want to speak a little bit about the reward process, because we talk about rewarding kids for being good and making good choices. And when you're working, you need to give your children a reward for managing on their own. That would be an encouragement. If we give kids attention for negative behavior, we're increasing the negative behavior. And unfortunately, we get into that dynamic very quickly and easily because kids will up the ante, and we have to pay attention to aggressive behavior, and we have to pay attention to unsafe behavior, but we want to try not to reinforce that behavior, which is why I think about how do we reward kids for making good choices. If you need to be on a phone call and you need to be left alone, how do you reward your child for playing quietly? A lot of parents will say, I don't want to interrupt the quiet play. That's a perfect time to interrupt and thank them for being quiet while you're on the phone. Thank you for playing nicely with your sibling. Anything that gets your attention is likely to increase. So positive, praiseworthy actions are likely to increase when you pay attention to them appropriately. And again, I mentioned parent attention is a reward. So don't underestimate the time that the kids want to spend with you. It's a little trickier with adolescents, but younger children most definitely want to spend time with their parents. So I think about how do we reward our kids for making good choices and following the structure and helping you to be successful with your work schedule. And I think in addition to praising them for being good and behaving appropriately, we also want to embed some things into the daily routine or the weekly routine to incent your kids. A lot of the routines lately have been very mundane. Like I said, the days are flowing together, and we're kind of getting that same activity day to day to day. With the sports activities opening up, I think there's going to be a little more flexibility. With the businesses opening up, a little more flexibility. But there's still some limitations. So I think creating those incentives in the week to give the kids something to look forward to and planning outings are also a very productive thing to keep into your schedule that gives them something exciting. So planning an outing at the park, a nature center. I had some other ideas here. Weekly activities and outings, picnics in the park, a scavenger hunt that you can do with your kids in an area. All these things are exciting. Even going out for ice cream, going out for dinner certain days of the week. If you put that into the schedule, it gives them something to look forward to. So that's what I have for you today. I hope that you found some of these things helpful to you. I really would greatly appreciate your comments and your suggestions. And some of the things, like I said, that we have coming up, we're going to keep talking about behavioral management strategies, educational supports throughout the rest of June. The other thing I wanted to mention is one of the questions that we've had was, when do I seek support from a professional if I'm concerned about my kids' behaviors? And typically, if we're seeing behaviors that are unsafe or destructive, harmful, that might be a time to seek support. I would recommend trying some of these strategies. If you're continuing to see those concerning behaviors, please give us a call or give your behavioral health provider a call, your pediatrician, and seek some additional support. The other concerns are isolation, withdrawal, changes in appetite, significant changes in mood, excessive anxiety. Those things might also need to be addressed a little more professionally or with some additional support. So please feel free to give us a call. I'm happy to consult with you on those topics. And we hope you will tune in. I would love to have your suggestions for additional topics to include. Some of the things that we're thinking of for the upcoming months have to do with college and career planning. as well as long-term planning for families with special needs and high-risk behaviors in teens. So please keep in touch with us. We look forward to hearing from you and hope you will tune in again next week. Thank you for your time today. Bye-bye.